We got a bidet!
Hey everybody, and welcome back for another video. In today's video, we are talking about The Flash. It's the new DC movie that is out this week. To be kind of upfront, we don't really follow the DC films very much. Honestly, I went to go see this movie because of Michael Keaton being back into the DC universe. I don't know what the new one is, like new universe is called, so just kind of use that terminology lightly. But with this one being the Flash, it is mostly about the Flash, and then we have a couple of side characters along the way. Again, Michael Keaton being one of the strong ones. So I guess we're going to talk a little bit about what happened in the movie, and then give our thoughts, and then it's kind of up to you whether you want to go see it. And I think we're going to try to keep this one kind of nice and short as far as explaining what happened in the movie. We will have spoilers. So, kind of what you gather from the trailer, like if you were to watch the preview, is that the Flash is trying to go back in time so that he can correct things and, stop his mom from dying. So, where does that all fit into here? Well, so we kick it off with, a normal save them situation. There's this big thing happening in the city, and the Flash goes to save everybody, and he gets a phone call from his dad from jail, and basically the Flash has been working on trying to come up with some evidence to prove that his dad didn't kill his mom because his mom was murdered. Well, he gets really angry one night when he's visiting his old house, and he runs so fast that he breaks the time continuum. And he's able to see that he can go back like one day in the past, and he comes back to the future, which is, well, back to the present, I should say. And it's interesting because he's able to go back to where he's supposed to be, because then that's where we see in the preview where he's consulting with Bruce Wayne on whether or not he should do it. And of course, with him being kind of young and dumb, he decides to just go for it. He wants to try to save his mom. So goes all the way back to the past, far enough where he can save his mom. Supposedly the way that he's trying to save her, because he doesn't want to mess with too much in the past, because he doesn't want to do the butterfly effect. So he's going to try to ever so slightly get a can of tomatoes in her cart, because what happened is she forgot tomatoes for whatever she was making, so she sent her husband to the grocery store to go get some, and by the time that he got back, she was murdered. And so if the dad never leaves to go get the tomatoes, then he can possibly prevent his mom from being murdered. So he just slips the can into the grocery cart, hoping everything will be fine. And while he's trying to come back to his present day, and he's doing this whole run thing, he gets smacked by this other, like, purple being. We don't really know much about him yet, just that he's a thing. And so he gets stopped, and he didn't make it all the way. He made it a decent chunk of the way, because it's kind of like when we meet him in the beginning of the movie, he's past his college days and he's working in a job. Whereas when he gets stopped here, it's during the time when he would have been in college. And this is where we see in the preview where he meets himself in this time continuum, and they're like on the side of the house, recognizing that they're looking at each other. And so a good chunk of the rest of this movie before we get to the main and epic ending is kind of almost like a reverse origin story. So we kind of get to see like the Flash from this universe learning how to be the Flash from the Flash. Something weird happens where the normal Flash, his powers transfer to this other Flash from the past or this other time continuum. And so they have to, in order to stop, I think his name was Zod.
Yep.
Zod is trying to destroy Earth so that he can get one of the beings from I think Crypto is the planet name. Uh, he's looking for Superman in particular. But to get some help, our normal Flash and this second college age Flash, they go and try to visit somebody that our normal Flash, it's kind of hard to keep track of them. Our normal Flash knows, like he's looking up all these people that he remembers from the Justice League, and he's trying to cross-reference them to this time continuum, and he eventually lands on Bruce Wayne. And so he decides to go and try to find Bruce Wayne. Well, they get there, and turns out, it's like this old hermit living in a mansion, and it's not the Bruce Wayne that he knows from his time. It's actually Michael Keaton's Batman. So it's interesting because if we watch, the Michael Keaton Batman from a while back, it's kind of like this is that time continuum as opposed to the main one that we were in. So they meet up with him and they get through this little bit of a lecture. Of course, Batman has to say, "No, I'm not going to help you." It's kind of like it gave me some weird like PTSD from The Last Jedi a little bit. But of course, within like 5 or 10 minutes, he decides to actually help our normal Flash, because the normal Flash is using the computer in the Batcave to try to find all these people again that can possibly help him in this time continuum. He's searching for.
In the normal Flash's time continuum, the only person that was able to save the world from Zod was Superman. So that's who he's trying to find.
Right, that's where I was heading. He was looking for Clark Kent, but supposedly there was a bajillion of Clark Kents in that time continuum, and not a bajillion Superman, but a bunch of people that were named Clark Kent. So he works his butt off. He falls asleep eventually, and when he wakes up, he sees this folder which shows where this Kent might be, and it turns out they have to go to Russia. And so our normal Flash and this college age Flash and Michael Keaton's Batman go to Russia, and this is where we see the cool shot from the trailer where Batman like zooms down the, I don't know what you call it, like tower, circular tower, so to speak, and we get like that triumphant Batman theme from back when. And when they get to the part where they think Clark Kent is supposed to be held, they go inside, and turns out he's not in there. It's a female, which is where is it Supergirl, Superwoman? I don't know what her name is.
They have her listed as Supergirl on IMDb.
Okay, so this is where they find Supergirl. She looks like she has been starved, like she has not been eating very much. She's barely awake, so she's got little to no energy, and so they basically just like plop her over their shoulders and try to head on out. They realize that Clark Kent isn't there, so they're not going to find him, of course, but they can at least try to help this girl. And when they get outside, again, this is part of the trailer where they're like, "What do we do?" And Batman is like, "Try not to die." And this is when Supergirl, her powers awaken a little bit, because I guess she gets energy from the sun, and that's kind of what gives her a burst of energy to go ahead and take out all the bad guys. And then our crew is able to get away and return back to the Batcave. So from here, we kind of realize that, there's Zod is actually still trying to find a specimen. He supposedly made some sort of deal with the U.S. military, and the military doesn't have the specimen. And so Supergirl actually sees Zod starting to murder the U.S. Troops. And so she decides, well, maybe I should help these people here on Earth, because The reason why Zod is here is because of herself and I Clark Kent. I believe are they brother and sister?
Cousins.
Cousins? Okay.
I believe they're cousins.
And so because they are there destroying basically Earth, because of them, she wants to help the Flashes and Batman. Before they go to face off with Zod, our normal Flash believes that he should have the ability, like the Flash abilities, to um, be able to put up a fight.
Well, he
That's
thinks it's the only way to get back to his own time continuum is if he gets his abilities back.
right. And so they hook him up to all this stuff. They try zapping him with some like bat devices, but eventually Supergirl just takes him way up in the sky to get zapped, and then he can get his powers back. Which kind of leads us towards the big epic ending of the film, where they are facing off with Zod's army, and there's kind of like there's multiple phases to this fight. Um, there is a phase where things are going crazy. Batman sacrifices himself to crash his plane into one of Zod's big like commanding ships, quote unquote. And also Supergirl gets like she believes that she's beaten Zod, but before she is able to finish him off, he stabs her and they take her blood. So that's like one phase. The
Because
reason
she found out that Zod was not actually after her cousin Clark Kent or Superman. Zod was actually after her. But she didn't know that until after they started this battle.
well, she also found out that they killed him.
Yes, that too.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So the college age Flash basically sees all this stuff happening and he's like, well, we can go back in time, right? And so they keep zipping back and forth with the time continuums, believing they can save people. And basically what he's starting to find out is no matter what he does, he cannot prevent all these things from happening. And when our normal Flash was contemplating in the very first place of going back in time, Bruce Wayne had told him the same thing, like you can't save everybody, kind of a thing, and you just have to accept it. And basically, we get that mentality echoed from the normal Flash being said to the college age Flash. Um, and also, while all of this is happening going between the time continuums, the college age Flash is getting like these different things sticking out of him. Like he keeps getting mildly injured each time he goes back. And eventually we see that thing that knocked our normal Flash out of the time continuum running situation, that purple guy that we didn't know who it was. And turns out that it was this college age Flash the whole time. But what was happening is he's trying to mess with time so much that he gets like really crusty. Like he gets like almost looks like a rock person. Um, but they like smack off a piece of I don't remember how it falls off, but part of his face falls off, like the rocky part, and they see a scar on his face, which matches the college age dude's face from the battle. Um, and ultimately, the college dude saves our normal Flash. It's so funny just calling these the random names. He saves the normal Flash from being killed by this being and sacrifices himself. And by sacrificing himself, it ends up killing this other one because they're the same person. Um, Batman, as far as like Michael Keaton's Batman, I'm pretty sure he dies in all of this. It's kind of hard to keep track of all that. But ultimately, normal Flash eventually is able to go back to. Now let's hold on here for a second because I'm not 100% sure how this all works. But he goes back to his what seems to be the present day time continuum. Why does it seem that way? Because when he gets back, he's going to his dad's court case where they're trying to prove whether he's innocent or not.
You're missing a piece here.
Did I miss one?
So in the midst of this battle, right? And he's realizing the only way to fix all of this stuff is to put things back to the way they were, which means his mom has to die. So he goes back to the grocery store when his, like, the day his mom died, because in this current time continuum, she lives because of that extra can of tomatoes. So he goes back to that day to, like, secretly take the can of tomatoes out, and that way the events play out to allow her to die because he's realizing that that basically messed everything up. But what he does is they kind of try to help things but still allow her death to occur, is that his dad's only alibi was that he went to the store to get the tomatoes, but the store footage, he never looked up at the camera, so it wasn't convincing enough to say that he was innocent. So that day, when he's going to basically redo his mom's death, he moves the cans of tomatoes up to the top shelf. That way, the dad has to look up at the basically at the camera to show that he was at the store at the time that the mom died. And so now we go to present day where there's a court case happening of the appeal for the dad who's been in prison for the death of the mom. And they're reviewing that footage, and we see him finally look up at the camera, which is corroborating his alibi.
Right. Yep. That's actually a big important part. So I'm glad you brought that up. So this is where things get kind of weird because this is basically the end of the film, but there's this one small thing that happens. Well, two things that happen. One is the Flash gets a phone call from Bruce Wayne, and we see the car pull up, and the car matches the same car as that Bruce was driving like early on in the film. So like Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne, the car he was driving. But when this car pulls up, it's actually George Clooney's Batman that comes out of the vehicle. And so that's why I'm not quite sure what's going on there. Like, are they, because everybody seems to be the same age as when he was doing, like, going back in time in like present day, except for Bruce Wayne. So I'm confused on whether or not he went to the wrong one and it seems like it's his normal world, or if he went to his normal world or his normal timeline and he messed up the Bruce Waynes. Like that was the butterfly effect that he ended up messing up. Maybe.
My guess is that it's some sort of a butterfly effect. And at the end of the film, Barry, or the Flash, is very confused as to who this Bruce Wayne is because it's not the Bruce Wayne he knows. And so I think that's why us as an audience is also supposed to be confused. I don't think you're supposed to understand. And my guess is that they did this on purpose to lead to a sequel.
Yeah, probably. So that's kind of where the movie ends, with him being very puzzled. And then there's an after credit scene showing the Flash basically leaving the bar with Aquaman. Aquaman is smashed on alcohol, and he like falls face first into a puddle of water, and he gives some sort of special ring to the Flash. And it sounded like it was a ring from is it Atlantica or Atlantis or something like that? So that's about it. There's a couple of like very small things that happen throughout the film too that aren't like super huge in my opinion. So like there's a love interest kind of between the Flash and this like reporter lady. And then there was one other one I was gonna mention.
There's a Wonder Woman cameo at the beginning.
Yeah, that's not what I was gonna say though. Oh, there is a section where when they're messing with the time continuums that they show like a whole bunch of different sections of the multiverse. because it wasn't just Superman that they showed. They also showed some Batman, uh, really all the different DC people. There was a handful of them, but the coolest one to me was that they showed the Nicolas Cage Batman,
Superman.
or Superman. Sorry, the Nicolas Cage Superman. I thought that was kind of hilarious that they put that in there, for giggles, so to speak.
Well, they gave him this ridiculously long hair. It'd be like if Nick Cage had my hair, like, can you imagine Nick Cage with this much hair?
Well, it's funny because like those were like the pictures I had seen of like when he was trying out for that thing, or for the role, that's what he looked like. So when I saw that long, luscious hair, I had kind of wondered, like, no way, are they gonna put that small little cameo in there? And sure enough, they did. So yeah, that was kind of basically the movie. So I guess it comes down to what did we think of the movie? Do you want to start with your thoughts?
Sure. So like many other movies that have come out, I very sadly thought it was all right. Um, I wasn't like the best movie ever, but it was worth a watch, I'd say. It kept my interest for most of the movie. As somebody with motion sickness, there is a lot of very fast-paced moving, as you would expect, seeing a movie titled The Flash, right? That's kind of not really, it's one of those things where it's not a surprise, but it also was a little concerning at the same time, just because stuff like that, especially seeing it in IMAX like we did, can kind of churn your stomach a bit, but it's something that because I've known that about myself for so long, it didn't really detract from the film a whole lot. Um, so I guess if you're okay with like a really fast moving movie, in terms of the story moved pretty fast, but I mean more like scenes in the movie can move really fast because they show him running and stuff. Then I think you should be all right. I thought they showed a lot of really interesting viewpoints of how to view him moving fast, both from like his perspective and like a third eye perspective or a third person perspective, excuse me. Um, but there was one scene that just really bothered me, and that's at the very beginning. He's trying to save this hospital, cleaning up Bruce Wayne's mess, if you will, because he's got other bad guys to go deal with. And there's a floor of or there's a whole section of the hospital that's collapsing, and one of them is like a baby unit. So there's like 8 babies that are basically all falling out of the window at the same time from like the 30th story up. So, he has to race to go save all these babies. That way they don't fall to their death. And of course, he's able to accomplish it. The part that bothered me so terrible, making these babies look real. It just looked like baby dolls. Like it looked like children's toys. It was ridiculous. They focused so much on that, and that was the beginning of the movie. So, like a first impression of, how much quality they were going to put into the movie, and it just looked terrible. I I don't understand. They would have been better off if they just didn't have that scene at all. Like it just was bad. But aside from that one scene, the rest of it I thought was all right. What do you think?
I thought in general I thought the movie was good. I didn't watch a lot of DC films in the past because we would watch a lot of Marvel films. We've kept up pretty decently with Marvel. We don't watch all the shows, but we have the general idea of what's going on. And every time a DC movie would come out, I would just hear like it is terrible compared to Marvel films. So I always stayed away from them. And so,
Oh,
you
we've
know,
seen a couple.
very few. I think you can probably count them on one hand. Uh, but knowing that this is supposed to basically start off James Gunn's new set of movies, and again, Michael Keaton was in it, so I was game. Um, I thought it was a decent one to try out, especially since there's a good handful of people that were saying that it was really a really good movie. I heard like one person say it was terrible, and part of me wonders if that was trolling. Uh, I would say the worst and the absolute worst part of this film is the CGI. A lot of obviously we see in the trailer that there's the two different berries. I can use the name now that you reminded me what the name was. There's College Berry and there's Present Berry. So they're on screen a lot together. And I can say that I've seen this effect in films done way better a long time ago. Like there were Disney Channel original movies that had people playing themselves as twins and stuff, and it looked better than this. And so
Lindsay Lohan.
I get that is one of the films. Yes, The Parent Trap. I was thinking of a different one actually, but uh yeah. So I think some of the CGI is pretty rough. What's interesting is there's even some parts of the film where it's not even like action. It's just like pure discussion and just walking around a room. And it looked really off. Like it looked like it was CGI when you didn't need to have CGI. And so I feel like, especially with the opening of this movie and like the sequence Sarah was talking about, where he's like doing all his slow mo and stuff, right from the get go, I had thought the CGI has to be on point for this movie to succeed. And I think if it's muddy, that's where the complaints are going to be, because there's so much that, like, so much detail that they're trying to put into, like when he's doing his uh fast speed motion, that if you make that main part of the film look like junk, well then it's gonna really hurt it in the end. But there was even some scenes. So when they were in Russia and they got Supergirl out, and Supergirl, got her little bit of energy back, that looked horrible to me. Like when she was punching the people, it clearly looked like she wasn't touching anybody. It just looked like, she punched towards them and then they were pulled on their wires. Like it looked like you were watching them film the movie and then nobody went back in and edited it. And so I thought that scene was very rough when it came to CGI. Um, and it's purely just from the editing room. It's not like an acting thing. It's they could have made it more believable, in my opinion. You look like you're looking something up.
Sorry. I was trying to figure out James Gunn's DC Universe start. It's something that's still bothering me. I'm still confused about it. And there were two big reasons that confused me, because I thought that this movie was the start of that new series, if you will, or universe. But we've got Wonder Woman, and it's Gal Gadot from Wonder Woman 1984, right? So a movie that's been out for quite some time. And then we had Aquaman, who was our normal Aquaman from his movie too. And so are the movies connected or are they not connected? It's very confusing.
I don't know. I was basically going into this with an open mind and then just trying to see where they end up going next. Because I get it. A lot of the same familiar. Well, you also got to remember. So this movie was made before James Gunn made that decision that this was going to be the starting point. So I mean, obviously, that's why some of those people from the past are in it, because I don't think they had plans to stop the DC universe um, before they made this movie. So we got a lot of the people from the past, but we also were heading somewhere else. And I think, again, I'm just a person that is kind of new to this whole DC stuff, and so this is just a thought. My guess is the way that they ended it is their way of going to a new trajectory with the movies, because they completely changed who Bruce Wayne was. now it's
George Clooney.
George Clooney, thank you. And it's like I can see his face. George Clooney and not Ben Affleck.
Or
So
Robert Pattinson.
I don't. Oh yeah, and not Robert Pattinson.
I am.
So I don't know. I was trying to look up an article that might explain it better. I was trying to explain it to Sarah, but to no avail. It didn't really work.
Well, all I've been able to find is release dates. But anyway, it's besides the point. It made it that much more confusing. I wish they would be very clear. It should not be this hard to research where the universe starts and stops. And it's making it very confusing for when you go to watch these films. So it's a frustration of mine.
I would say confused. It probably makes sense to the people that are like hardcore DC fans. Because like if this happened with Star Wars, I'm sure we would know exactly what's going on. I would say for like people like us, where maybe this is where we're getting back into DC films or trying to, yeah, I could see the confusion quite a bit, actually. It's just that I think we're just not informed enough. I'm curious to see where it goes, like where the future movies, because they have, was it Blue Beetle? Is that what the next one? Is that the next movie in this series?
It's the next movie being released. I couldn't tell you where it is in the timeline.
Okay, my guess is it's probably maybe the Flash went to the timeline where the Blue Beetle is going to be a thing. Maybe. I don't know. We're gonna have to see. Maybe we'll have to go see the Blue Beetle and see if it connects nicely or not. I don't know. We're confused. We're new to this. That's all I can really say. The movie was good, except some of the CGI and again the editing was a little mucky. It wasn't the greatest. And I think if they would have cleaned that up a little bit, it probably would have been probably a very, very good start to James Gunn's new DC trajectory. Anything else you want to say about it?
That'll do.
Sounds good. Well, that was our talk about The Flash. Oh, I guess there's one more thing I want to say really quick, and it's super quick. Tamora Morrison was in this film, and I thought that was amazing. But that's all I had to say. You can see what he does in the movie for yourself. If you enjoy this type of movie, make sure, or if you enjoy this type of video, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We are doing movie discussions way more this year than we have in the past. And so just trying to get better at it and deliver some good advice to all of our viewers. If you enjoyed this video, drop us a like. And if you see The Flash, let us know what you think in the comments. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.